Hello everyone, my name is Zainab and I am a coach for the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. The USCPR stands for Freedom, Justice, and Equality for the Palestinian people in a world without racism and oppression. As part of a global movement for collective liberation, we work to end the U.S. complicity in Israel's massive violence against the Palestinian people. As a coach, I help build coalitions and student movements to help build out support for the Palestinian cause. My experience in solidarity work stems from growing up as a Muslim of Indian descent and from my community in Atlanta, Georgia, informed by the experiences of organizing with Black and Palestinian communities to end state and police collaboration with Israel. I'm currently a graduate student at Columbia University and part of the campus-wide coalition CU Apartheid Divest, where we're working to end our university's complicity in ending this genocide. I'm hoping this session helps folks understand the need and importance of solidarity work by contextualizing the ongoing movements, policies, and various solidarity movements across the United States. There's a way for all of us to be plugging into this work and using our skills, talents, and strengths to uplift and continue working towards Palestinian liberation. I'm excited to facilitate this session and to talk about our solidarity movement with Linda Sarsour. And even though she doesn't need much introduction to know who she is, Linda Sarsour is a Palestinian-American political activist. She was a co-chair of the 2017 Women's March, the 2017 Day Without a Woman, and the 2019 Women's March. She's also a former executive director of the Arab American Association of New York. She and her Women's March co-chairs were profiled in Times Magazine's 100 Most Influential People in 2017. A Muslim of Palestinian descent, Sarsour first gained attention for protesting police surveillance of American Muslims, later becoming involved in other civil rights issues such as police brutality, feminism, immigration policy, and mass incarceration. She has also organized Black Lives Matter demonstrations and was the lead plaintiff in a suit challenging the legality of the Trump travel ban. Sarsour has been a vocal advocate for Palestinians, a supporter of the BDS campaign, and a leading advocate of our community. Linda will present for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then we'll have a 30-minute breakout for activities to test you all on your advocacy work. Please feel free to save all your questions and share them out loud at the end, or write them down on an index card, or if you're tuning in from home, type them out in the chat box, and we'll get to them at the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Zainab, and thank you to the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. The USCPR has been doing incredible organizing nationally, and we as a Palestinian American community should be very proud of the work that they are doing. Assalamu alaikum to my Patterson, New Jersey family. I am just deeply honored and humbled to be here, and I told my friends at PACC that it's my cousin's henna tonight. And my family thinks I'm crazy that I came to Patterson, New Jersey, when the henna is all the way in Whidbey Catering Hall in Brooklyn. But I told them these are my people, and I'm going to go to the PACC conference to be amongst one of the most influential and actively engaged Palestinian American communities in the entire country. And I hope that you, Patterson, are very proud of the work that you have been doing for decades, far ahead than many communities across this country. To be honest, I just wanted to come be in space with you. I have felt, as many of you feel, just a longing to be amongst our community, just to be in space amongst other fellow Palestinian Americans and others who love Palestine and want to see a free Palestine. There's not much that I can say in this room that you don't already know. And I come to every space with a heart so broken that I don't know at some point if I will have a heart left to break. Every time I think I've seen the worst of it all, something else happens that is even worse than what you thought was the worst. Sisters and brothers, I never in my life thought that I would see hungry fathers trying to bring food home to their families get shot and killed by the enemy state. When I watched those fathers, there was a sense of responsibility that they had, a commitment to come home to their starving children with something to offer. And many of those fathers, instead of coming home with a bag of flour, came home as dead bodies on a donkey cart. This is what's happening to our beloved people. And every single one of us that is sitting in this room today is complicit. We are complicit, my friends. even those of us who love Palestine from the deepest of our hearts, those of us who get up every day to organize for Palestine, we are complicit. The United States government today is gaslighting us, dropping aid on our people while they are the ones that sent the bombs that dropped on the 30,000 people that have been slaughtered in Gaza. What kind of world do we live in, my friends? That the same people who are complicit in your murder are also trying to feed the hungry amongst. I mean, this is unfathomable every time that I think about it. And so for me, I look for moments of hope. I look for places that take me out of despair. Because I'm not going to lie to you, even as an activist and an organizer, I get to moments where I don't even know if I want to live in this world. This is not the world that I want to live in, that allows what is happening in Gaza to continue to happen. Nothing we have done has changed this administration. And we just got to sit with that for a minute. Most recently, many of you heard about this campaign in Michigan called the Uncommitted Campaign. The state of Michigan has a box on their presidential primary that says uncommitted. So it says Dean Phillips, Marianne Williamson, Joe Biden, uncommitted. And this country, just in case you didn't know, those in power, particularly in political power, they only understand two things. They understand money and they understand votes. And you may say to yourself, Sister Linda, I don't want to think like that. I don't want you to put me in an electoral box. And you all know, folks, I'm an organizer that has used every tactic. I have been arrested over 47 times, my friends. I have done civil disobedience. I've organized mobilizations. I've bird-dogged elected officials. I have elected progressives to Congress. I have done it all. So for me, no tool is off the table. And one of the failures of our communities and our allies is that we were not playing on the political front from the get-go. Because our opposition was working the political realm a long time ago. And that's why we have 535 members of the United States Congress, and only 101 of those people have said ceasefire. Let me also be clear in this room, just in case we're not on the same page. Me, I'm beyond the ceasefire. Sisters and brothers, you're calling for a ceasefire 35,000 people later. And I know that is the immediate need right now for the people of Gaza. But it's at some point we got to get to the point, and the point of our movement has never been about a ceasefire. Because the state of Israel has never ceasefired. How many times have you watched during Ramadan bombs dropping on Gaza last year, the year before that, and the year before that? Every Ramadan, watching the ways in which worshippers are brutalized in Masjid al-Aqsa. The arrest and detention of Palestinians every single day in the West Bank. This is every day in Palestine. So when people keep telling me ceasefire, I just want to make sure we're all clear. The state of Israel has never ceasefired for 75 years since their existence. And so I understand when we say ceasefire, we mean that this onslaught and genocide in Gaza needs to stop, and I agree with you on that. But don't make that the movement. I'm not part of a ceasefire movement. It's a short-term demand that we have right now. I'm part of the Free Palestine movement. And that requires an end to the occupation. And that requires breaking the siege on Gaza. So let's refocus a little bit. Make ceasefire part of what you want, because we need it right now. But don't let anybody forget, especially our new friends that knew nothing about Palestine before this genocide, who are in the movements with us now. They have to learn. We have to make sure that they know that this is not a ceasefire movement. And people are calling it that, and it bothers me. It really bothers me as a Palestinian American. And if you are part of any organizing groups, please go tell them that the Palestinians are not feeling us about this whole calling it a ceasefire movement. Because ceasefire movement would mean that once you get a ceasefire, then what are you called after that? Because there has to be a ceasefire at some point. You can't kill everybody in Gaza. So we got to be careful about the way that we are framing the genocide that is happening in Gaza and reminding people that this is a continuation of the 75 years of oppression that the Palestinian people have been experiencing. And this genocide is just the most unfathomable of it all. Be careful about reframing the Palestinian liberation movement into a ceasefire movement, because it is not a ceasefire movement. To the Palestinian friends here, you all have a very similar story to mine. If you yourself are not an immigrant from Palestine who came to this country for a better life and to raise your children in a country where there is supposed to be a democracy, some of you are like me, you are children of Palestinian immigrants. And my Palestinian parents are from a village called El Bira in the West Bank. So we are from a village that still exists. And my parents are original to this village called El Bira, although 50% of my village are refugees from 1948. My parents made a decision to come to this country. They made an explicit choice that my father was able to obtain a green card through his brother who married a Palestinian American woman. He got his green card, went back to Palestine to marry my mother, who is Palestinian, also born in the same village. And my father said, we're going to the United States of America. My parents sacrificed for me to be here. My parents, left their grandparents, left their siblings, left everything that they loved in Palestine so that they don't have to raise their children under a military occupation. And so for me, my job and my responsibility as a child of Palestinian immigrants is to make my parents' journey worth it to America. So you better believe I'm not intimidated. I will not be silent, because my parents did not sacrifice so that I could come to this country, assimilate, and be silent in the face of the oppression of my people. There's a lot of times where people are making different kinds of decisions. Do I do? Do I speak? Do I only say this? Do I only say that? Do I organize on my college campus, but my mom is telling me that it's too dangerous, don't do this, don't do... Somebody got to do it. Somebody has to do it. Somebody has to do it. Some of us are going to have the courage to do what is right no matter the consequences. We have a problem in our community. And you know me, I always take the risk of saying things and not getting invited back, but I know PACC is always going to invite me back, so I'm good. I'm in a good place. So, you know, I'm going to a henna party. So for those of you who don't know what a henna is, it's basically the pre-party before the wedding party. And it is a traditional Palestinian gathering where all the women wear traditional Palestinian clothing and we engage in tradition and ritual specific to our Palestinian culture. Nobody else in the Arab world does what we do. They don't wear the types of embroidery that we wear. So I know for a fact that Palestinians exist because we are a unique and beautiful people. The reason why I bring up the henna is because sometimes I'll go to a henna or a Palestinian wedding and I'll see the people at the wedding, but I won't see them outside at the rally. I won't see them outside when I tell them I need you to meet me outside this member of Congress's office. It's despicable. You sit in front of Al Jazeera for 24 hours a day, and I hope this is recorded and we're putting it on the PACC website because you need to send it to your mailing list, because this is not for the people in this room, it is for the people that are not in this room. That we will sit in front of Al Jazeera for 24 hours a day and we will cry for the children, hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, and we'll be so devastated and outraged at what's happening to our people. And then you tell them to do the most basic things with no sacrifice. Not today, tomorrow, I have a bridal shower. This is my cousin's henna. And I gotta go home, get dressed, get myself together, go all the way. I'm going to be an hour late. But you know what? This is more worth it for me. Okay? This is more worth it for me. We tell people sometimes make a phone call, and it's too much for them to handle. You bring them to a fundraiser and you tell them we need these resources to organize. You think freedom is free in America, my friends? You think people just came to this country? You think that enslaved African people in this country, one day, they were just like, ta-da! We are gonna end slavery in America, right? Or any other community that has been marginalized in this country that you see have gotten rights. You think they just got rights just like that? People fight for their rights. People invest in their rights. In this country, right now, we need to be looking at, what do I need to pay my mortgage, pay all of my bills, make sure that my family has everything that they need, and all the extra money that we have, we need to start investing it in our freedom, my friends. The Palestinian people deserve it. I always say to people, and I've been crossing the country, I crisscrossed the country this last couple of months. I've been to a place as far as a place called Walla Walla, Washington. There's a place in America called Walla Walla, Washington, and I went there. Because everybody needs to hear us. And while the world is working to silence our voices, we are just going to get louder. I will speak anywhere. You invite me to a church, you invite me to a street corner, wherever I can go and inspire people to stand up for the Palestinian people, you show me the doorstep and I'm going there. Everything is worth the Palestinian people. You know why? Because the Palestinian people gave you everything. They carried their dead babies and showed you in the cameras. They've shown you devastation. They've bore their hearts out to you. These mothers poured their tears for you. What else do we want from these people? We saw their entire neighborhoods graze to the ground, losing everything that they love. And I always ask myself when I wake up in the morning, I say to myself, Linda, are you worth the people of Gaza? Do you think the people of Gaza would say, and honest, I want you to, this is a rhetorical question, keep it to yourself, but I want you to think about it. Do you believe that the Palestinian people in Gaza would think about our Palestinian American communities in the United States of America and say, MashaAllah, our people? Wow. Astaghfirullah is the right answer. Absolutely not. And let me tell you why. Our Palestinian American, and I say this and I know people think I'm biased, of course, because I'm Palestinian, but we really are a brilliant people. And this is why they want to exterminate us off the face of the earth. Palestinians in America, we are doctors and lawyers. We are engineers. We are teachers. We are nurses. We are entrepreneurs. We literally came and bought out all of Main Street. This is what we do when we are in a community. We are resourceful people. We are articulate people. We are passionate people. We are just incredible on every level. In this country, we've accumulated so much wealth, alhamdulillah, and I'm saying that that's something to be proud of. We have more degrees per capita as a community probably than any other community in this country, and I mean that by our numbers, right? Don't compare us to communities that have more people than us. I'm talking about per capita. But did you ever think to yourself, what has all of the degrees we've accumulated, all of the money and resources we've accumulated, all of the positions we've accumulated, what has that garnered the Palestinian people? Seriously. Something is missing, my friends. And it's missing for us on a national level. The question for our Palestinian American communities and our Arab American communities and our Muslim American communities, because you know we overlap across those communities. The question is, how in are you? Are you ready to play politics in America? Are we ready as a community to play politics? Michigan said, we're ready to play politics. We're going to try something new, my friends. We're going to try something new. Michigan has a presidential primary. Michigan is a swing state, my friends. There really is no pathway to the White House without Michigan. So the Arab American community said, we need to do something different. The ballot has uncommitted. We had 20 days, my friends, just so we're all clear. Let's play with the numbers here. 20 days before the Michigan primary that just happened on Tuesday, right? We did 1.5 million voter contacts. Wow. for only $200,000. All our budget was only $200,000. I went to a fundraiser in New Jersey like a month and a half ago, and they raised like $850,000. So I know the money's there. Imagine if I had $400,000. Imagine if the Listen to Michigan people had $500,000. We probably could have sent 250,000 people to the polls to vote uncommitted. But nonetheless, 20 days, $200,000, over 100,000 voters went to the polls in Michigan and said, President Biden, we are uncommitted. Because you don't see us on the streets. You don't see us at the events when we disrupt you and disrupt your surrogates across the country. But you better be watching the data, my friend. Since we're only votes and money to you, let's look at these polls. Let's look at the polling results, the voting results of the Michigan primary. Guess what else is really interesting, my friends? Guess who else has an uncommitted box? Who else has one? Does anybody know in this room who else has one? Who else? New Jersey, my friends, got an uncommitted box. Guess what you have also? Guess what else you got? A lot of months to work. Your primary, if I'm not mistaken, is in June. Am I crazy? Or is your presidential primary in June? June 4th. Yeah, I mean, I had 20 days. You have 30, 60, you got like 95 days. That's a lot of days to have. Oh, my friends, if New Jersey gets themselves together and y'all take this time and build an uncommitted movement to Joe Biden, Lord have mercy, you might be the ones to knock it out of the park. And let me tell you what uncommitted means, because it's important for us, because we're learning new things. People will say to you, but Linda, aren't you worried that uncommitted campaigns right now are a vote for Trump? You setting up Trump for a win. No, my friends, Joe Biden is setting himself up, not me. Don't put that on us. That ain't me. Joe Biden's listening to, because if you're not listening to 80% of your own party, don't put anything on me. Whatever happens in November got nothing to do with me. This uncommitted campaign is a message to the Democratic Party. Somebody got to wake up. Just so you're clear, $200,000 is less than some of the white consultants that work on the Biden campaign. Just so you know, that's less than the salary of one guy that's sitting up there crunching some numbers and telling them, don't worry about these people. These people are not important. Okay. That's a risk you're going to take, and that's $200,000 salary on some white man that's going to go to waste once you wake up in November. And don't let anybody make you take the responsibility for the downfalls of a party that does not listen to their constituency. The message to the party is that we are moving on Palestine. There's a train right now, right? And we're driving the train. And the question to the Democratic Party, are you going to get on the train or are you going to let that train pass you by? Because young people are on the Free Palestine train. People of color, many of them, are on the Free Palestine campaign. Anti-war voters and activists are on the train with us. Progressive anti-Zionist Jews are on the train with us. So you got to make a decision. I'm not the one. I made my decision. You got to make a decision. Sisters and brothers, this is how this country is going to understand us. And you might say, Sister Linda, but what about the protests? Are you saying that we shouldn't be going outside? No. You still got to be outside. You still got to go to the rallies. You still got to be outside of the numbers. Let me tell you why. Because there's a purpose for every tactic. The tactic of mass mobilization is to keep this issue in the conscience of your neighbors and ordinary people. To make sure that people still remember that we are watching a genocide. No one's going home. We're watching a genocide. But it's also for you as an individual. And I'm going to share a story with you that I heard that has inspired me every time I felt like I needed to get up and go to a rally. Long time ago, before most of you in this room were born, some of you were born, a couple of you, but most of you weren't born. There were people in this country that stood up against the Vietnam War. They said, not us. Not on our watch. We oppose the Vietnam War. There was this one man that would go to Washington, D.C. He's from the Washington, D.C. area. And every day this man went outside the White House and he was carrying this sign with one hand and a candle with the other hand. And he just stood there right outside the White House. And a reporter saw him, because there's always reporters in Washington, D.C. Saw him the first day, saw him the second day, came back 4 days later, came back a week later, came back a month later. The man was standing in the same spot. The reporter went up to him and said, "Excuse me, sir. I've been watching you here. I come every day, and I see you at the same time, holding the same sign and holding that candle." And of course, his sign was a sign in opposition to the Vietnam War. So the reporter said to him, "Do you think you standing out here with this little sign and candle is going to change any of these people in power?" And the man looked at him and said, "Hold on." He said, "I don't stand here with this sign and this candle and this conviction to change them. I stand here so they don't change me." You understand? So when you go outside, it is a reaffirmation of your own humanity and the humanity of the Palestinian people or any marginalized people that you're going to defend. So don't underestimate the power of being outside. And I'm so proud, in particular, of the young people. I mean, New Jersey's great, but have you watched New York City? The kids got New York City lit every day. I just got to go on Instagram. Wallahi, when I'm outraged at the world, I just look on Instagram. I say, 4 o'clock. Wallahi, every day I can find a rally in New York that has a minimum of 10,000 people. Today, go look at the PYM Instagram. It is a monsoon in New York. Do you understand? It's raining monsoon. And they have about 10,000 people in Washington Square Park right now. In a monsoon. These are our young people. The other day, maybe 2 weeks ago, you probably saw UC Davis. Student body divested the student budget, which was over $1 million in Israel, right? Divestment. Today, while you were sitting in this room, UC Riverside divested from Israel. You see the risks that our young people are taking across this country? It is incredible. I swear to God, every time when I watch that UC Davis video of the kids cheering, of the kids seeing the fruits of their labor, I was in tears. Because this is what we need, my friends. And today I watched the video from UC Riverside. Go see it. It's online. You know, these kids, that's the one thing they know. They will document those wins. You are going to know that they won. And they did. And guess what? You just got to go down the line. There's probably UC Santa Cruz. They just going up and down the West Coast. We also got kids here at Columbia University. Columbia is supposed to be an Ivy League, right? You would expect a little more. Their president of Columbia University, just so we're all clear, because sometimes it be our own people. Just so you know, I don't know if people know this, the president of Columbia University, she's Arab. Just so you know. She's an Egyptian woman. So let's be clear. It's not always the white man's the problem. White supremacy is the problem, but it ain't always a white man or a white woman. And those young people on that college campus, many of whom are Palestinian students from our communities, are being oppressed in ways that I've never seen on a college campus. To the point where our children were impacted by some sort of chemicals by 2 students who used to be former IDF that go to Columbia University. And the students right now are in legal talks against Columbia University. They have changed every rule for our kids. This is what they do. I'll give you an example of why we have to be so steadfast in what solidarity truly means. I'm not going to say it yet, but you'll find out by Wednesday, because we'll see what happens when I get there. So there was a university where I was invited by basically the student body of the university. Everything was fine. All of a sudden, the school started changing the rules. Well, before Linda Sarsour comes, what about the security? What about this? What about that? Do you have this in place? Do you have that? You know how it is. Becomes all these different obstacles for our young people. So the kids called me. And they said, this is what's going on. And I said, don't worry about that. Hold on a second. Got into a conversation with the administration of the school. And I said to them, let me ask you a question. Can you please demonstrate that these requirements have ever been applied to any other group at this college campus? If you can prove that to me, then I will help these students fulfill these requirements at the school. Well, what happened? There is no well, what happened? There is, do you apply these rules for everybody else? Yep. No, you do not. Is that the case? And that is the case, my friends. Here's where I am in my life. I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to back down. You are not going to back down. And you are not going to let your children on these college campuses back down. In fact, what you tell them is you stand up, and even taller than you were standing up before. Our children should not, in any way, be made to feel small on those college campuses. Whether your child is going to a university on a scholarship or on financial aid, or whether you are paying for them to go to university, the school is getting paid. So your child is just as valuable as any other student on that college campus, and we need to start acting like that. If I hear another student tell me that their parent said, which happens often, يما بدناش مشاكل. يما شو بدنا فيها وجعتها الراس يما خلص انت دشرك من هالشغله. No, don't do that. For people who can probably tell by my tone, basically it's parents in our community basically telling their kids, do we really need this drama in our lives? We need it. And if the mom doesn't want to deal with it, call me. I'm going to go drama with the kid. Because if you keep saying, we don't need this drama, don't worry, be quiet, خلاص, let's مشي الأمور, you are setting a precedent for the other students that are coming next year and the year after and the year after. In every movement in this country, including the one that aligns most with the Palestinian cause, ending South African apartheid, that happened on college campuses across America. It was the power of student organizing that got them closer to ending South African apartheid. So please don't put obstacles in the ways of Palestinian freedom because you don't want a little drama. Your child will be remembered as a hero, as a Palestinian, because I'll tell you about the Palestinians in Palestine and the Palestinians here. I want you to start operating like the Palestinians in Palestine because them people don't back down. They don't back down. You watch children as small as toddlers that will stand back straight to a tank. And then you're telling your 19-year-old child, we don't want drama. Come on, my friends. Come on. We need, as parents, we need backbones so that our children can have backbones. There's a lot of things for us to do, and we got a lot more work to do. This, my friends, is not a sprint. This is not just a couple of months thing, and then we're going to get over it, and then we go back. The question here is, are you ready to be part of the marathon? It's a long way, my friends. Long-term strategy. You got to have your eye on the prize, and you have not reached the prize. So why are we always going back and forth? Can I tell you something else that bothers me about my people? Yeah, I mean, like they said, maybe Diab is going to say, Linda's never coming back here ever again. Sisters and brothers, you know what really sometimes when I sit with myself, and I hope that you all do that, sometimes we just got to sit quietly for a second and think about some things. You know what bothers me about our people? They need bloodshed to rise up. Sisters and brothers, why do you need Palestinian dead babies for you to rise up and become this exclusively, loud community for Palestine because there's a genocide happening? Do we need a genocide, my friends, to fight for the Palestinian people? Why do we need videos of children crying over their parents? Why do you see tanks running over our people, smashing them to the ground? And these are the things that outrage you. It's the thing that makes you want to go to the rally. You know what should make you go to the rally? Not the dead bodies, not the dead babies. Your quest for liberation for the Palestinian people. That's what makes you go to the rally. Not because you feel guilty, because you're watching your people get slaughtered in your mind and you feel so bad and you're so guilty that Allah decided that you have privilege to live in the United States, but decided that other people be victims of genocide. That's not why you go to the rally. I don't go to the rally because I'm crying for Palestinian children. I go to the rally because I want to see them free, my friends. And guess what? We got to always do that. As often as we can. I say to people all the time, my question for our community is, where are you going to be the day after the ceasefire? Where are you going to be? Are you going to say, Alhamdulillah, ceasefire, waqaf utlaq an-nar? That means everybody wrap it up, go home. You know why I say that? Because it's happened many times before. We did the same thing. Remember 2014? Everybody was fired up. We were outside everywhere. And then they said ceasefire. I'm not saying that there's no Palestinian organizing. Of course, there's always some that happens. And there are very steadfast, consistent organizers across the country, including here in Patterson. So I'm not taking away from the work of people who do this work every day for probably many for the last 40 years. I'm not taking that work away from them. I'm talking in general, as a community, the minute a ceasefire happens, we go home. And then all of a sudden, no more Al Jazeera. Your channel clicks off, and now you're back to watching Musalsalat and watching whatever other thing that you were watching on television before there was a genocide. And that, my friends, is a moral question for us. You gotta sit with yourself and say, was that me? Was I outside in 2014, and when there was a ceasefire, I kind of moved on with my life? And now you're back 2024, which is 10 years later. And of course, there has been war in between and bombings in between and all kinds of things in between. But we always have to wait for bloodshed to get up. And that, my friends, is, we got to draw a line. And I'm drawing a line on that. We cannot, sisters and brothers, be a people that is moved by bloodshed. We cannot. In any movement, I say this all the time. Even as someone, as you know, I organize in racial justice movements, right? We organize for, against police brutality and against police violence. And I tell this to all my allies, even when I'm in black spaces, I say to people, please, do not just get up when you see a dead body on the street. The point here is to prevent dead bodies, to keep building power and to organize and to change a system so that we don't get Breonna Taylor, we don't get George Floyd, and we don't get Oscar Grant, and we don't get Eric Garner. Why do we only organize when we see bloodshed? Why? Why do we do that? Same thing when you're organizing in the immigrant rights movement. All of a sudden, people will hear that a Mexican mother in their community is getting deported. And the people will send out a message, and all of a sudden the people... We shouldn't be organizing at the time when a mother is about to be separated from her children. The point of organizing is to make sure that we do not have a system that rips mothers and fathers away from their families. Something is wrong, my friends. Something is wrong. And my job every day is to sit with myself and reflect on what is wrong with us. Not what is wrong with the rest of the world, because the world is all wrong. The people in power are all wrong. What's wrong with us? I think that we as a community have a few things to do. And when I say community, I mean everybody in this space. Make a commitment. Engage in behavior that is consistent. And this is how you start becoming someone who can say, I am truly part of a movement. Number one, of course, there are fundraisers all the time that happen in communities, and they'll say we're raising money for humanitarian issues, we're raising money for PACC, we're raising money for this organization that does this good work and that good work, and that's great. But I'm not into just doing the one-time thing. That's not commitment. Say to yourself, many of you who used to do the Starbucks situation, you know, let me tell you this much. I was always grateful to be from New York City because I never had to buy Starbucks. Because I always had the best coffee shops in America in New York City. And guess what? The best coffee in New York is from the local bodega, just so we're all clear. But anyway, for those of you who like a nice cup of coffee, and there's a lot of great coffee shops here in Patterson. I just saw it. You all got a Mo Cafe. We have one in Astoria. My point is this. We all like luxury. Sometimes people like to go out with their friends. You get a nice cup of coffee a couple of times a week. Some people get it every day. Say to yourself, you know what? This one day a week, I'm going to work. I'm not going to buy lunch. I'm not going to buy this good cup of coffee today. I'm going to put that $5 or that $10 back in my pocket. At the end of the month, I'm going to have between $20 to $40, maybe even $50. Make a commitment to be a monthly donor to an organization that works on an issue that you care about. Because that is the type of consistency in a movement that we need. For example, if you became a donor at, let's say, PACC, and you gave PACC $50 a month, right? People will say, Sister Linda, what is $50 a month? You know, if 10 people in this room gave PACC $50 a month, you know how much that is? $500. That pays, I bet you, at least one bill for PACC, right? If there is, that's only 10 people. If 20 people gave $50, that's $1,000. Might pay at least their light bill. Might come a little $100 short, but at least you're going to help them pay their light bill. People underestimate the power of their resources, what people are able to afford. It could be any organization, an organization that does an after-school program in your community. It could be whatever it is that you want. Obviously, we're in a space about Palestine. $40 a month. Trust me when I tell you, my friend Ahmed Abu Zainab leads USCPR, and he will tell you that if he could get 50 people to give them $40 a month, that's a lot of money, my friends. Don't underestimate that. Get yourself into a consistent monthly behavior where you are giving some resources to an organization that means something to you. And you get to actually say, me, I'm a monthly donor to PACC, to the Palestinian American Community Center. Me, I'm a monthly donor to the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. Me, I'm a monthly donor to whatever organization. That's some street creds right there. That's how I know you're a real one, if you have made that commitment to support an organization that you love on a monthly basis. People don't like this conversation. And to be quite honest with you, I don't care if you don't like it. It's an important one. People say, and remember, we had a lot of folks in our movements back in the days. You remember the days when people would be like, voting don't do nothing. I'm not going to do that. The system is rigged, the this and that, and all. You know, you already know all the arguments that they had. Two-party system, this is this. I'm not going to participate in all this good language, good stuff they got. It's not rooted in reality today. You don't want a two-party system? Go start a real third party that is rooted in our values and principles, that is aligned with our community, and I will be right behind you. But right now, our people are being harmed by United States foreign policy, my friends. They are being harmed by United States taxpayer dollars. So you cannot, nor do the people of Palestine have the luxury for you to do self-righteous politics because you think you're smarter than everybody else, while our people are being murdered by the policies of the United States of America. Policy requires you to work in the political system. I just want to make sure that we're clear about what politics does. Okay, so now we're on the same page. Sisters and brothers, there are like 2 elections every year in every state. And then you know how people are. They wake up every 4 years and to decide who the president of the United States is. That's the least of our worries in this country. It really is. Of course it's important who's in the White House. But what's more important is the people who are your local elected officials. All politics is local. Who from New Jersey are you sending to Congress to make decisions about whether more aid goes to Israel? That's your question. Who are you sending to the state legislator that every couple of years proposes an anti-boycott divestment sanctions bill in this state? Who are you sending to fund your public schools, to fund infrastructure in your communities, to fund the types of services that immigrants, refugees, and other poor and working class people need? Who are those people? That's what you need to worry about. That's your responsibility. So that means you got to participate every year. And I promise you, friends, I went across this country. If you think that voting is not important, somebody else does. You know why? Because in every state, somebody wakes up every morning to think about how to take your voting rights away from you. There are more voter suppression laws in this country now than there has ever been in the last maybe 40 years. So if voting was not important, they wouldn't be trying to take your right. They would say, go ahead. We're going to open every obstacle. It's going to be smooth sailing. Everybody go vote. They make so many. They change the days of the primaries. They change the polling site. Sometimes they want an ID. Sometimes they don't want an ID. Sometimes they let you change your party. They don't let you change your party. They close polling sites in the poorest communities in America Trust me when I tell you, they got tactic after tactic to keep you away from the polls. So if you know that, I don't know about you, but when I know someone's trying to make me not do something, it motivates me to do the thing that they don't want me to do. So get up and vote. And vote together. Don't go to the polls by yourself. Call your mother, just be like, did you vote today? Go with me, my friend, my cousin, That is you as an organizer. Trust me, don't look at organizers and activists or people like me and say, oh, that's too much for me, I can't do all that. We don't need you to do none of that. There are times where you yourself only have to organize the people who are closest to you. If you could just organize your mother, your father, your uncles, and your cousins, and for some of you, that's probably about 150 people. Like some of you are from families where you are a voter block by yourself. Turmusaya in New Jersey, you could literally make somebody lose their job if you just got your village to go to the polls. I've been to weddings, my friends. And I look around, I say, imagine all these people went to the polls together in one district. You would knock a city council member out so quick they wouldn't know what hit them. I'm serious. That's how much political power we have. If Bay Ridge got themselves together and they all went to the polls, Bay Ridge would have a Palestinian congressperson, a Palestinian council person, assembly. Trust me when I tell you, when our people get organized in districts where we are concentrated, we could do wonders. And it doesn't have to be Palestinian, obviously. Somebody who's aligned with us and our values. That's the second thing. The third thing that I'll say is this. This is the hard one for our community because this is like a syndrome that we have that we're learning to get out of. We come from a community where everybody's the smartest person in the room. We really are. I don't know. I'm sure people have experienced this. There's some things that I'm not good at. So guess what? I don't do the things that I'm not good at. I only do what I'm good at. Some people in our community want to be the leader of the thing that they're not good at. And we let them. Maybe because they have a little couple of extra dollars in their pocket. Maybe it's because they've been around the community so long and out of respect, which is a noble thing. But sometimes real respect's to say, come over here. Here's what you're good at. You're amazing. You are incredible. This is what you're good at. 1, 2, 3, and help shepherd that person into a place where they can succeed. If you are not a political analyst in our community, don't be the guy or the woman who's on television doing a political analysis of what's happening in Palestine when that's not what you're good at. Or the people that want to be the speaker at the rally when they can't put two words together. But you may be good at something else. And I want you to be a leader in the thing that you do well at. So my suggestion to all of our communities is, let's stay in our lanes. Everybody do what you're good at. We have sisters in our community who are good at things. We have brothers who are good at bringing people together and organizing and mobilizing people. We got incredible, and you've had them here, many of them at this conference and tomorrow as well, some of the most profound speakers and people who can do political education in our communities. You have some of the best tactical organizers of civil disobedience. You have some of the best nonprofit leaders who know how to run a business, a nonprofit business, who understand how to run an organization. Let them run the organization. The people that know how to run the organization should be the ones to run the organization. If we did that, if we did stay in our lanes in our community, mashallah, we would be only God knows where. And the last thing that I'll say to all of you is this, and this is the most important part. I don't know about all of you, but you already know this about me. Everywhere I go, I don't care if it's from New York City to California to Texas to Walla Walla, Washington. You know I'm going to show up unapologetically Palestinian American. Everybody already knows that about me. And I didn't think that it was possible to be even prouder to be Palestinian than I have been in these last 4.5 months. Our people have allowed us to raise our heads high in ways I don't even know how to articulate it, my friends. And so one of the things that I want from all of you, and the last thing that I want you all to do, is to remember that our existence as Palestinians is resistance. The fact that we exist, the fact that we can start organizations called Palestinian American Organizations, the word Palestine, Palestinians, is our threat to the occupier. We the people, the existence, our breathing is a threat in of itself to the state of Israel. And so when you know that, be more of a threat. And you know what that means? Put your back straighter. And when you see your kid, doing this, put your hand in the back of your kid and say, sit up. You are Palestinian. Our kids need that affirmation right now. Many of our kids go to schools across this country that when the horrific attacks of October 7th happened, their schools sent out statements in solidarity with the Israelis and the state of Israel and said nothing about the disproportionate impact on the Palestinian people. They ignored our kids and the trauma of our children. Our kids are going to schools today, and you're expecting your child to learn and study and do homework and get a degree through genocide. Their people are being slaughtered, and your kids are on Instagram watching their people who look just like them blown to smithereens. Do you understand that our children are walking around with trauma? I'm 43 years old and I'm traumatized. Imagine our 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 20-year-old children on these college campuses who are literally being erased, their existence as if there are no Palestinian children on these campuses. So the least that you can do is love your children and instill in them a pride of being Palestinian. And that is your method of resistance to a world outside that does not want us to exist. And so the message to your children is, not only do you exist, but we are the best that this world has to offer. Yep. And that is what your children need right now. So I'm going to join Zainab over here. Like I said, there's nothing that I said to you today, sisters and brothers, that you don't already know. And I do want you to know that of all the places in America, Patterson is that kind of little glimmer of hope. Like you don't underestimate that when I come to Patterson and I see Palestine way. I see Palestinian flags all over this community, unapologetically Palestinian. I went to a restaurant today and I asked for ginger ale. And the man rolled up to me with something called CNC Cola. It's a company that makes ginger ale. And it made me so proud to go to a Palestinian restaurant that did not serve me Coca-Cola company. This is a community that has shown us that you can be unapologetically Palestinian and still have political influence. Palestinians in the city council, a mayor that stands with the Palestinian people, that you could make a whole street in Patterson named after our beloved people. And guess what? You're still here, you're still growing, and guess what? The opposition knows better than to come to the streets of Patterson. That's the kind of community that I want to live in. So I just want you to say, I'm saying this for everybody that is not in this room today, but mashallah, may Allah bless the Patterson community even more than it has already blessed you. May Allah protect your leaders that have been doing this work for decades. I've known some of these brothers for over 20 years, and I could have known them longer if I was a little older, but I'm a little younger than them, alhamdulillah. And the sisters, let me tell you about the Patterson sisters. MashaAllah, you have some of the best women leaders in the country. I just saw Besma all the way in another part of, that PACC in Patterson was in Southern California teaching another organization called Mejden about what you're doing in Patterson. I walked into an organization where PACC is leading a workshop with about 25 organizational leaders because they want to do what you do. So when you support PACC, know that it's not just that you're supporting this PACC community. You are supporting communities across the country who are trying to replicate what the Palestinian American Community Center is doing. So thank you so much.
covered and for reminding us to dig deeper and to not limit our imagination to just simply focus on a ceasefire, and for reminding our community to continue supporting the student movement and that we have nothing to lose right now besides, like, as we're watching this genocide unfold, we have nothing to lose. So thank you for that. And before we jump into the Q&A session, wanted to ask if you don't mind just giving us a brief list. I know you covered a lot of it, just tangible action items people can take down and move forward with.
I'm very sorry. Can you just pin that mic?
Okay. See, PACC is fancy. They have things and. I already told you. Find an organization, give a monthly donation. Today. Don't say, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next week. Make a commitment today. If you can't even make that commitment and fulfill it today, we got a problem. That's number one. Number two, engage in electoral politics, right? It is important who your city council members are. It is important who your state legislators are. It's important who your members of Congress are. Don't keep telling me every year, my congressman's bad, my congressman's not good on this issue, my congressman's not good on this issue. Guess what? You're the employer. This is the other thing that our community has to understand. Your congressperson you don't work for them. I don't work for my congressperson. My congressperson works for me, okay? And this is how I'm gonna operate. Some of us live in districts where it's very hard to change our member of Congress because of the ways in which our districts are drawn. You, my friends, with your community and your concentration, trust me, you could do it. So engage in electoral politics, give to a local organization, keep showing up. You hear about a rally, you hear about an event for Palestine, show up. Not only for Palestine, but show up for yourself. To keep reminding yourself that you are still in this, that you still see the Palestinian people, you still feel their pain. So showing up, again, is not just for the cause, it is showing up for yourself. And the last thing, like I said, everybody here, whether you are Palestinian or not, if you are a supporter of the Palestinian cause, you are also the best amongst us. It is not easy to be a supporter of the Palestinian people. We are probably the most vilified people in all of the world. You have watched our country literally look us in the eye and basically telling us what we're seeing with our eyes isn't exactly what we're seeing. Literally. Just really this one quick example, because this really blew my mind. With the recent, what they're calling the flower massacre, right? The United States government, again, was the only country to block a statement by the United Nations Security Council that was led by Algeria, condemning the state of Israel for the massacre. And so when they were asked, why did you even block a statement? They said, because we didn't have all the facts on the ground. Video, surveillance video from the state of Israel. It's not my video. It's not Palestinian video. It is literally surveillance drone video from the same airplanes that shot those people that were getting flour. The disgracefulness. Like, I don't even have words, Zainab. I don't even know what's the word, my friends? Give me something. Because there is not words in the English language that describes I don't have it. That's great, and that ain't, for me, that's not even gonna cut it. يعني إشي عجايب. يعني the state of Israel leaves me speechless sometimes, based on the abhorrency that we have watched from this apartheid state.
We're gonna go ahead and start taking questions. Yes.
So, thank you very much, Linda, for coming to this conference. And I stood up this morning in the first meeting and spoke about the Michigan election story. And I think, we cannot afford to squander this type of momentum or political capital here in New Jersey. And I echo what you just mentioned, that we have to do our part as well. Another thing that I want to also highlight is that we are marginalized in this country because our numbers are understated. People think we're like tens of thousands here. Like you mentioned, my only hometown of El Jeep here has about more than 10,000 people.
Oh, I know. El Jeep is another one here.
I don't know. So the number thing that we have to do here on the East Coast, all right, is to start counting ourselves.
That's right.
Forget about the census from the US because that's not going to be done. And I just want to point out something that I mentioned earlier. In his testimony before Congress, Christopher Wray referenced 2.4% in his speech about anti-Semitism. Jewish people make up 2.4% of American population. That puts them at 8 million people, right? How did he know this? I guarantee you there's no governmental agency here in the US that would count Jewish population. It's not on the census.
That's right.
They're counted as whites, like the rest of us, right? So how do we do this? Like, if we cannot just depend on the government to do our job here, we have to do our own census. Who is going to do this?
That's
Who's
right.
going to be in the forefront of leading this? Which nonprofit organization? But we have to do it to strengthen our representation and our presence here in the U.S. And we stand up, like you mentioned earlier, the Michigan story. Even though Arab Americans, about 100,000 can tip the scale in the primary.
Yes.
Here we can do more here in New Jersey. We can organize here. We have the most qualified people to run for Congress.
Yes.
We mentioned Patterson, District number 9 here. We can tell you that Clifton, Patterson, Garfield, a lot of people here that they could, make a lot of influence. The other thing that I want to also mention is the election or campaign finance. Okay, you have like billionaires, pro-Israel donors, bribing people left and right. They have unlimited funds to do it, right? So nobody can stand up and say anything about Palestine. I have the first speaker here spoke about how the IDF soldier was defeated by Tom Swazi. But guess what? He's worse than her. He appeared on TV, and then he asked a direct question.
That's right.
A direct question about the plight of Palestinians and what that incident that happened, which you have no words for. I don't have any words for it either. And then he pivoted to October 7th.
That's right.
So we have to think about this, whether your suggestion about the recurring contribution or whatever to fight this. We have our students here are being stifled on college campuses, which are the laboratory of democracy here. So when people just pull their donation and say, well, these, the presidents have to resign or else. So yeah, so we have to start somewhere. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I mean, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of work that we have to do ourselves. And just so folks know here, for 25 years, there was a campaign called Count MENA. And MENA, of course, as you know, stands for Middle East, North Africa. And it's not, of course, the most ideal category, right? Because there's different people who identify themselves in different ways. But it was more a regional thing. Anybody from the North African region, which would include obviously like Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, etc. And obviously the Middle East, meaning all of the Levant, like Palestine, Syria, Urdun, and of course all the way to the Gulf to Yemen. So the point is it would pretty much encompass all of our community. There was a campaign, and actually the MENA category was tested back in 2015. And it tested successfully. And then when Donald Trump became the president of the United States in 2017, that whole initiative was ripped up and thrown away, because there is a benefit in this country for counting us from that region as white so that this country could remain more of a white majority. So that brings us back to what this brother was saying, that we're not exactly sure how many Palestinian Americans, how many Arab Americans there are in this country, and really how many Muslim Americans there are. We don't know. Just like you said, even amongst other faith communities, if they do have a number of how many they are, it's probably because they did their own research and their own work, and we have to be invested in that as well. So that might require organizations even to do local canvassing of communities. I don't know if, I'm sure some of the other beleds did this. My beled did this one time, like about 10 years ago. They actually did a registry. For example, so-and-so, let's say, for example, Nidal Sarsour, Meha Sarsour, they have 7 children. you almost did like a registry to start to get an idea of how many of us were actually in this country, but only on my village level. So there has to be some sort of way for us, at least in Patterson, for people to say, we know for sure there are, مثلا, 110,000 individuals or Palestinian Americans or Arab Americans in the district. But again, that requires long-term investment and long-term work to do that on a scale nationally. Brother right there in the back.
Someone in the back?
Yeah, right there.
I wanted to ask, what is your take on going into elected office for you? And if you were to go into elected office, how much of the energy that you have as an activist will you lose, do you think, that prevents you from going to elected office? If you could answer that, it'd be great.
I mean, you answered the question, really. That is why I'm not in elected office, because I'm actually much more powerful outside. And a lot of us in this community share these kinds of skills. I can help elect people. I can help you raise money. I can say what I want when I want. Difference is when I go on the inside, I'm not enough. I'm already a minority outside. Imagine you're Rashida. And by the way, Rashida's coming to Patterson today. Imagine you're Rashida. You're one person amongst 535 other people, and you have watched what has happened to Rashida. For those of you who are going to see Rashida tonight, while you're in the room with her, please make dua for her. Even when we were doing the Michigan Uncommitted campaign, the media targeted her about something that she had nothing to do with. The only thing Rashida did for Michigan Uncommitted, and she'll tell you, is she obviously thinks it's a good idea. She was so proud that the community organized around it, and they kept saying, Rashida is undermining her party, Rashida's doing this, and she started getting attacked even more, not by the opposition, by the Democrats, right? By neoliberal Democrats. So for me, I always say to people, remember what I said earlier? Everybody stay where you're good. I'm good out here. And guess what? I could pick up the phone and call members of Congress and tell them, do this, do that. The ones that I have influence over. The question is, we need to be able to have more people inside that align from us. So sometimes we have to say, Sister Linda's role is really good over here, outside. But Sister Flana, she's the one we want to put inside. We just got to play, as they say, we don't want to play checkers, we want to play chess. So I know, for example, like there are people always across the country that always say, Sister Linda, go to office, because they want me to say this in office. They want me to organize it. If I ever thought of going to Congress, I would need to have at least 100 members of Congress that we have elected across the country who are like Rashida, like Cori Bush, like Summer Lee, then I'll go inside. But for now, it doesn't make sense for people like me to go in there.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really enjoyed your speech, Jenny McDavid from Houston, Texas. My colleague and I work for United Airlines, and about 45 minutes ago, something really sad happened outside of Newark Liberty Airport. United was the first U.S. carrier to resume daily service to Tel Aviv. Business as usual. So I have to fly back in the morning, but I am hoping that some of these organizers in this room, Jersey, can think about some potential things that could happen to a protest. Business as usual. I mean, there was no talk about providing humanitarian aid or any type of help for evacuees or anything like that. It was just business as usual, and are the crews going to be safe? That was the discussion that took place. So I would love to come back for some sort of action. So anyway.
I like you already. I like you. You're welcome. Thank you for that information.
Hi. Thanks so much for that. I'm going to try and keep it brief. So there's been so much energy behind a lot of these grassroots actions that have been happening, kind of specifically disrupting things, targeting electeds, people with a lot of power cashed in them. And that kind of stuff is well served by constructive criticism. So I was going to ask, as somebody with so much experience in this, are there parties or people with power that you think might be getting off lightly? If you could wave a magic wand, would you sort of try and move some of that energy where it's not being directed at? Do you have any sort of good-hearted criticism or suggestions? in what is such a movement full of energy.
I love that. I just think we need more of it. I think the directed targeting of, number one, also of organizations that are holding galas that get money from some of the largest weapon manufacturers in the country. They've been disrupted. Members of Congress have been disrupted. State legislators have been disrupted. They've disrupted President Biden. People would buy $1,000 ticket to go into a fundraiser for Joe Biden. They will disrupt him there. I mean, people are putting their money where their mouth is. People have disrupted Nancy Pelosi. There is a 24-hour encampment outside of Antony Blinken's house every single day. You have to pass these people reminding you that you are an aider or abettor of genocide. Sisters and brothers, during a genocide, there is no business as usual. Don't say, wow, those so, I don't know how I feel about, when they're disrupting these people in front of their houses or whatever. Nobody told them to be the Secretary of State of the United States of America. Nobody told you to go to Congress. This is what you get for taking a position of responsibility to defend people around the world, to defend human rights around the world, to be a leader of a world, the free world, as they say. So don't feel bad for the people who have power over genocide because they're getting a little bit uncomfortable in these spaces. Nothing that you do for 20 minutes at an event is anything compared to the horror that our Palestinian sisters and brothers are experiencing every day. I got no shame in it, and don't be of the people that shame the people that do that. What we need is about 1,000 more of those people, because there are a lot of other people in this country that need to be shamed. I'm not going to name the name of the place. Today in Michigan, right? We just won over 100,000 votes. There was a masjid in Michigan that was going to do a grand opening. By the way, it wasn't really a grand opening. It was, you know how this happens. They renovate the masjid, they invest another $1 million, and then they re-grand open because now it's more beautiful and they want everybody to see it. They invite some of the most outrageous elected officials in the state of Michigan that have not called for ceasefire. And so some of our organizers, like not my organizer, I'm talking about the organizers in Michigan that have been outside every day since October 7th. They started emailing the masjid saying, we demand that you rescind those invitations or we will protest outside the masjid. So then the uncle started calling. عيب ومش عيب. No, انتو عيب. انتو العيب. Not the kids that are standing up for the Palestinian people against people who have not even said ceasefire. انتو العيب. Imagine shaming young people who have more courage than people in some of our communities that are willing to host people who've been silent in the face of the bloodshed of our people, but want to say aib and shame to our people for organizing around it. But you know what happened at the end, my friends? They rescinded those invitations. Because the last thing you want is your own people to be protesting outside your masjid. And guess what? I will never say aib about those kids. I will never, because they think that I know everybody. So the call to me was to tell the kids to stand down. Those kids don't need my permission. They don't call me and say, Sister Linda, do you think we should go and protest the masjid? That was their decision to do that because they are outraged. And when they called me, I said, I'm not going to, first of all, I don't know who the kids are anyway. But even if I did know who they were, I wouldn't call them to shame them. Actually, good thing you called me to tell me. Shame on you is what I said. You shouldn't have never invited those people in the first place. But alhamdulillah, they didn't show up anyway, and the protest didn't have to happen because the people knew they were wrong, and so everything worked out. Alaikum salam, sister. حبيبتي.
رفح غزة الشمال الجنوب هاو الوضع قالوا الآن منطقتهم زي بعض
خلاص يا
بس هلا السؤال اوكي when the war come down كل شيء يعني dust هلا كيف احنا بنقدر نساعد I have a couple of ideas بس it seemed to me انه المجتمع الامريكي والمجتمع العربي والمصري والأردني they make it as a it's so difficult to us even to move or to do that. How we could do that? And for me, I'm just sitting and I don't watch Al Jazeera, I don't watch it. Instagram, I just talk to my family.
That's right.
And for me, focusing about here is fine, but for me, focusing about there, and right away after war, about the Aitam, about the Musabin, al-Jarha, that's my main focus.
That's right.
I'm sorry to tell you, whatever he said is true, but we need the resolution now. I'm waiting to congressman to يعطينا القرار or Biden or I want it to be now, not in 3 weeks. Now. It's not the يعني احنا بنحكي about تغيير السياسة الأمريكية تغيير I'm not the people that they don't have
I respect that.
And
حبيبتي الله ينصر أهل غزة. هو حكيك مزبوط، بس إحنا لازم يعني ما استفدنا إن يخلص الحرب مثلا اللي هلكت ونطعم ونسقي العالم ونعاود نبني لهم دورهم والسنة الجاي نرجع زي ما بكينا. إحنا بنعرف إن أهل غزة محتاجين هلا humanitarian aid على مستوى يعني الله أعلم يعني في البليونز اوف دولارز يعني. بس أنا متوقع أنا بعرف إحنا our people the Arab world زي ما بتحكي الدول العربية they are cowards but they have money. Okay, there will be money. Even in America, all the Islamic organizations, you already know who they are. I've been with them, many of them across the country. They have raised millions, يعني more than they've ever raised ever before. So I'm not worried necessarily about a lack of humanitarian aid and services. The Palestinian American Medical Association, by the way, they've done already 6 missions with a minimum of 15 doctors since November. So there are people going in to do surgeries already, bringing supplies from the outside. Of course, it's not enough no matter what. So the goal, the reason, sister, that it's not or, it's and يعني. فاهمة كيف؟ يعني مش لازم نختار هيك أو هيك. لازم نشتغل على مستوى both sides. Because our country is the one that is bombing those people. So how do we stop this country from sending bombs to the state of Israel? How do we get this country مثلا انت بتحكي بدنا قرار مش بعد شهر وهيك. طب ما احنا هاي البلد الرئيس البلد هاي بيقدر يرفع التلفون على نتنياهو بساعة ويكون له بحر. If you don't stop this genocide now, you will not see a penny from the United States of America. من دون أمريكا أصلاً ما في أصلاً إسرائيل ما في إسرائيل من دون دعم هاي البلد. So إحنا لازم نشتغل to help rebuild Gaza, to support humanitarian efforts to Gaza. I promise at some point we're going to have to do international negotiations with countries like Egypt to allow assistance, social workers, psychiatrists. إيه مش بس بدهم medical services from the perspective of physical medical services. They need psychiatric support. The children need trauma therapy. These kids have seen things you would never imagine. So they're going to have to allow more Arabic-speaking therapists, more art therapists, people who can come and do psychosocial work with the children. They're going to have to send doulas. They're going to have to send all kinds of people from around the world to help. And I know that day is going to come, but it will not come until there's a ceasefire, of course. And our country, unfortunately, holds a lot of power when it comes to getting a ceasefire in Gaza right now. So مزبوط كل حكيك مزبوط ولازم نركز على اللي انت حكيتيه بس ما ننسى ان احنا في البلد اللي لو ما هاي البلد اصلا ما بيصير بغزة and to prevent this from ever happening again. My friends, every 2-3 years there's a war in Gaza and thousands of people die, hundreds are wounded or the other way around. This time is the worst you've ever seen it, but I don't want to just stop it now and then you and me are in the same conversation 2 years from now. We're talking about another onslaught on Gaza. And remember, I also don't want another day to pass when there's still a siege. What's the point of sending people back to a cage and to a prison? Is that what we want? To rebuild the houses, rebuild the coffee shop, rebuild the play yards for the kids? And then for what? So they could be playing in a cage? I want the people of Gaza to be free. And that's going to be what we're going to have to start working on the day after. I mean, we're working on it right now, but the focus of freeing Palestine all the way is the minute there's a ceasefire, that's the goal for not just for the people of Gaza, but don't forget our sisters and brothers in the West Bank who are also experiencing horror, but we're not as focused over there because we're watching this extreme horror that is happening in Gaza.
We have time for one more question from the audience before we close out.
Hi, my name's Halima,
Yes.
and thank you for everything that you've been educating us on. And I just wanted to ask your opinion, because you've talked about intersectionality between different movements, and I think we're all learning that this is beyond just advocacy, it's juggling. It's walking and chewing gum at the same time. How do we focus our efforts as a community with other communities and get around things like ranked choice voting so that we can separate the two-party system, while also, and what else do you think about in terms of boycotts when it comes to like taxes and like tax season? 'Cause these are things that you hear things about, but are still very mystic and like very misunderstood.
The power of boycott has already manifested, and we've seen it happen. I mean, Starbucks right now is begging for contracts all over the world. They've lost their entire industry in Morocco and some of the Arab countries. They're just not making money, and that's the point of a boycott. You got to let people feel the consequences of their actions. I mean, Starbucks is also, by the way, just so folks know, they're not just terrible on Palestine, they treat their workers bad. And so we should have never been drinking Starbucks in the first place. But anyway, now the genocide took us to that level. So now we're in solidarity with the workers and also in solidarity in Palestine. There's a lot of companies that have felt the impact of the boycotts that we had. You already know this because you're watching them do all types of creative marketing to try to get some of their businesses back, and we know that it has harmed them in many ways. We've had unprecedented apologies by companies, even though that hasn't helped them get their business back. But remember when the whole Zara situation happened? Zara didn't have to come out and explain. Who are we for them to explain to us why they made a quote mistake or why their campaign was, insensitive? The responses you're getting from corporations is already telling us that boycott, divestment, sanctions work. The divestment campaigns on college campuses across the countries work. Why do you think they want to stifle students? Because they know when they stifle them, then you can't do UC Davis, UC Riverside. Now it's like a domino effect. There's resolutions for divestment at probably 55 campuses just today that I know of. That's the ones that I know about, not saying the ones that probably are doing it without us. So do not underestimate the power of individual boycotts, because sometimes people say, how do you know that my little boycott of Starbucks is helping? But if we all do it together, it is something that is impactful. I think your question about the taxes, people have asked me that question a lot. So the kind of proposal that's been out there for a long time is like this war resistor kind of tactic, which is to say that we're going to all boycott paying our taxes. We're all just not going to pay. It's not that it's mystical. It's real. You could do that if you wanted to. The issue here is it can't just be one of us. We would have to get some way to get at least 5 to 10 million people in this country, which is, by the way, sounds like a lot of people, but we have a country of 330 million Americans, to pledge to do that together. Why? Because they could go after you. The IRS will get me for sure. They'll go after you, they'll go after you, they'll go after you. But it will be a lot harder for them to go after 10 million people who are doing it from a place of conviction, plus the probably other 10 million people in America who just don't pay the taxes because they don't feel like it, who are not doing it for any conviction reasons. It requires a mobilizing and organizing. There's a lot of visionary ideas, but then you gotta do the work. Even third party, when people debate me on third party stuff, you don't think that the third parties that we have right now are the third parties for you. I got a problem, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I'm not a Green Party person, and I understand the power of voting a third party, but that particular party, I don't know if I'm aligned yet all the way. There are some things I'm aligned on and some things that I'm not aligned on. But if we want to build a third party, we could do it. It requires for us to do a 50-state strategy to get petition signatures to put our party on the ballot. Working Families Party has Working Families Party New Jersey, Working Families Party New York, Working Families Party Wisconsin. So they're in a few states. So they started that. It requires resources. So we can do it. There's nothing that we cannot do. It just requires mass organizing, getting people committed, people willing to knock doors, people willing to get the petition signatures. So there's nothing off limits to the people. Why I don't take this country for granted. As much as I criticize this country, I love this country. Because I know that everything's possible in this country. If I put my mind to it, we could make everything possible in this country. But it requires us to build out a large coalition of people who are willing to all have the same vision and to move together. And that goes back to my original point that I said when I was speaking. Zainab knows this too. We are also in a movement, to be honest with you, that hasn't yet, we have great coalition partners, great allies, but the movement in general, there are a lot of people in our movement who are still silent on genocide, my friends. There are people I've stood shoulder to shoulder with and I've organized with, and I look at their social media accounts, I look at them as individuals, and I'm like, my friends, do you not see as genocide happening here? You know what I'm saying? So we got to remember that we also have people in our movements, some of whom are very politically influential, who have chosen silence for opportunities and for selfish reasons over speaking up for a genocide. And so for me, being able to mobilize our entire movement to get us all on one strategy is a long-term plan. So I just want people to not feel any type of hopelessness if we can't change something in a year or in 2 years, that we have to say to ourselves, are we in it for the next 10 years? Are people in it for the next 10 years at least? And people might say, why am I using 10 years arbitrarily? It came to me in a dream. I feel like in 10 years, we are going to see a free Palestine. If we are 100% in it, committed, investing in the organizations, doing that work, if we are all got the same vision, we're all staying in our lanes and everybody's doing what they're good at, and staying united as a community, even when we don't agree, right? That's the other thing about our community. This organization is doing good work. This organization is doing this good work. But this leader of this organization and the leader of this organization, they don't talk. Because their daughter was married to his son and they got divorced 10 years ago and they're haraba for some reason. I'm serious. This is like real life situation, by the way. That was a good example from Michigan, by the way, on the uncommitted campaign. We had 2 organizations, 2 different PACs that don't talk because there's a family dispute that has nothing to do with nothing. That's things manifest in our community. So the question to our community is, for the sake of our beloved people in Gaza, for the sake of the Palestinian people, are we willing to put our differences aside and to say, no matter what you and me have been through before, I'm willing to put that to the side because the people of Gaza mean more to me than some old dispute you and me had about whatever it was 10 years ago. And the same thing in the movement. We have organizations that sometimes have been a little bit on different sides, and we're saying to them, are you willing to put that aside just for now, so we could at least together witness a free Palestine in our lifetime? Sisters and brothers, Palestine is our human rights issue of today. That is the issue, the global human rights issue of today. And it is one for everyone. Everyone has a stake in what happens to the Palestinian people. And if we get a free Palestine in our lifetime, which I know we will, because I've never, be honest people here, especially for folks who've been doing this work for many years before, who feels like we're closer to a Palestine than you've ever been before? Absolutely. Never have I felt, I mean, I've always said that even if I don't see it, I always used to say these really sad things like, oh, if I don't see it in my lifetime, at least another generation will see it. I stopped saying that because now I feel like I'm going to see it in my lifetime. So inshallah, let us stay focused. Let us stay organized. Let us get into a consistent behavior that allows us to feel like we are truly part of a movement because we participate in it in a consistent way.